Welcome to the thought for today. I am Monica Kincaid. Have you ever felt like you're struggling alone, wondering if God even sees you in your toughest moments? Today, we're diving into a powerful story in Mark 6:48 that shows us how Jesus not only sees us during our trials, but also uses these moments, y'all, to point us to his divine will. Truth number one, Jesus sees us even in our battles. In Mark 6:48, it says, seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea, and he intended to pass them by. Jesus, fully aware of his disciples' struggles against the wind, shows us that even when we feel distant from God, he actually sees us. Crossing the sea at night was risky, increasing the disciples' fear and their need for help. For us today, this assures us that Jesus never loses sight of us, even in our struggles. His watchfulness reflects his omnipresence and his deep compassion. The next truth that we want to look at is struggles don't mean we're out of God's will. As a Christian, if I'm honest, I used to think, y'all, when I faced challenges that it meant that I had sinned or done something wrong. But I've actually learned that that's not always the case. In Mark 6, Jesus actually sent the disciples across the sea, knowing they would face difficulties. Sometimes when we obey God and the things start falling apart and we wonder if we actually misunderstood God's direction. I love how this story speaks to the nature of God's will. Y'all, it's not always smooth, it's not always pretty, and it's definitely not always easy, but it is always purposeful. Just as the disciples were where Jesus wanted them, our struggles, y'all, are a part of God's sanctification process for us, helping us to grow in the fruit of the Spirit according to Galatians chapter 5. Our final truth is Jesus comes to us at the right moment. There have been so many times, y'all, when I was ready to give up, questioning my faith and wondering where God was. But just like Jesus did for the disciples, he shows up. The timing, that fourth watch of the night, is actually between 3 and 6 a.m. And it reminds us that when God seems silent, y'all, he is always on time. In Mark 6, this resonates with the Jewish tradition of night watches, symbolizing God's constant protection, like the pillar of fire by night and the cloud by day, according to Exodus chapter 13. Today, it teaches us to trust in God's perfect timing, even during difficult, uncertain, or silent seasons. As Charles Stanley famously said, obey God now and leave the consequences up to him. Because by trusting that Jesus sees and leads and will arrive precisely when needed, we find peace in God's will, despite life's storms. I hope and pray that you too were encouraged just like I was on today, knowing that when I don't see God moving, I just need to obey and trust God. May the Holy Spirit always remind you as well to obey God's will. Until next time.